Here's everything that happened while you were asleep. So Google ends hiring targets that are tied to diversity. Amidst protests and lawsuits, the Trump administration agrees to restrict Elon Musk's DOGE access to Treasury payment systems. Federally funded community health centers, which serve 1 in 5 rural Americans, begin shutting down due to a grant funding delay, so they don't know when their funding's coming. Trump signs executive order banning transgender women from competing in sports. Irv Gotti, who is best known as the founder of Murder Inc. Records, has died. Hundreds march in the streets of Phoenix against ICE raids and deportation of immigrants. Panama is disputing the United States' claim that they will get free passage in the Panama Canal. The Trump administration evicts former Coast Guard leader from her house within 3 hours' notice. Another Trump lawsuit just dropped. A fired NLRB member sues Trump. Environmental justice workers to be placed on leave. The United States and Israel are withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council. The U.S. Secretary of State is protesting the G20 summit happening in South Africa. United Health hires top defamation law firm to silence critics over denied coverage. Egg prices are going up. Protests against mass deportations are underway in cities across America. More protests are happening in Jacksonville, Milwaukee, and LA this weekend. So that's everything you missed while you were asleep. A Texas superintendent has issued a warning to parents about potential immigration raids on school buses. Yes, school buses. According to Newsweek, the superintendent of Alice Independent School District informed parents that U.S. Border Patrol agents may board school buses to check students' immigration status. Students traveling on these buses could face questioning, detention, or deportation. Those without identification or proof of legal status may be detained or deported. To address these concerns, the district is considering assigning a chaperone in a separate vehicle to stay with the detained students. Alice ISD serves 6 schools with 4,500 students, 92% of whom are Latino. Schools across the nation are on high alert regarding this new policy, and many parents of immigrant students are pulling their children from school out of fear. Prior to the Trump administration, ICE agents were required to obtain approval before making these types of arrests in sensitive locations such as schools and churches. Under the current policy, ICE can make arrests in these areas without prior approval. Recently, this policy was used to arrest a father of 3 during a church service, and this was so unfortunate. I reported it last week or the week before. In addition to the stress of typical school concerns such as bullying and grades, children now face the added worry of immigration raids. However, students across the country are fighting back by staging walkouts to demand an end to mass deportations. Thousands of students in California participated in a school-wide walkout in marches and protests. Schools across the nation are also taking protective measures. In Chicago, schools have refused to cooperate with ICE, while Bridgeport Public Schools, a place in Connecticut, have issued guidelines requiring written approval before ICE can enter school property. Know your rights. It makes ICE's job way harder. So you have the right to remain silent. You do not have to discuss your immigration status or citizenship with the police, immigration agents, or any other officials. Anything you say or do can be used against you at immigration court. If you are not a U.S. citizen and an immigration agent requests your immigration papers, you must show them if you have them with you. If an immigration agent asks you to search you, you have the right to say no. Agents cannot search you or your belongings without your consent or probable cause. If you are over 18, please carry your documentation with you at all times. If you don't have them, you can tell an officer that you want to remain silent or consult a lawyer before answering any questions. Okay, so here's everything you missed while we were on the clock. Federal workers are forced to resign. Eligible federal workers must decide by 11:59 today whether to take the Trump administration's forced resignation offer. Unions are fighting back, but Trump's plans had a wrench thrown in them after a federal judge paused Trump's federal worker resignation plan just hours before the actual deadline. A firm CEO said that personally helping staff pack boxes during layoffs made the situation feel more humane. The U.S. is set to seize the Venezuelan president's plane, which has been held in the Dominican Republic during Senator Marco Rubio's visit. The DOJ shutters the FBI foreign election interference team. The U.S. is accusing China of slow-rolling TikTok negotiations. Fake ICE agents have led to arrests in at least 3 states. People are impersonating ICE. A new strain of bird flu has been found in dairy cows in Nevada. After reports that donations slowed down, people have started donating thousands of dollars to support Luigi Mangione. Trump's cancellation of certain tariff provisions could hurt Temu and Shein. U.S. lawmakers move to ban China's DeepSeek from government devices. New data shows a slight increase in jobless claims. A Texas Republican expressed deep regret for voting in favor of banning TikTok. Panama's president stated that there is no agreement to allow U.S. warships free passage through the canal. The DOJ is suing Illinois and Chicago over immigration-related policies. cities, particularly them being a sanctuary city. Now, onto these executive orders. Trump is set to sign an executive order forming a DOJ-led task force to investigate alleged anti-Christian bias. Trump is preparing an executive order to fire thousands of employees at the Department of Health and Human Services. Trump plans to sign an executive order imposing sanctions on the International Criminal Court, specifically because they called for the arrest of Netanyahu. So that's everything you missed while we were on the clock. On day 6 of Black History Month, we celebrate Angela Davis. She has spent her entire life fighting against injustice. Born in Birmingham, Alabama, she saw racism firsthand and began speaking out at a very young age. As a college professor, she stood up for her beliefs, but in 1969, she was fired from UCLA because she was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party USA. A year later, she was falsely accused of a crime and placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. After months of hiding, she was arrested and spent over a year in jail. The National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, alongside others, started the Free Angela Davis movement. People around the world joined the Free Angela Davis movement, and in 1972, she was found not guilty. Davis has always fought for the rights of all people, especially people in prison. She worked to free the Soledad brothers, which led to her own arrest. Instead of giving up, though, she became even more committed to ending unfair treatment in the criminal justice system. She co-founded Critical Resistance, an organization that works to end mass incarceration, and she supports groups around the world that help people in prison, especially women. Education has also been a big part of her work. She believes that schools should get more support than prisons and encourages people to imagine a world without prisons. She has written a lot of books, y'all, including Are Prisons Obsolete and Women, Race, and Class, to help people understand the connections between racism, gender, and incarceration. She's also traveled the world giving speeches and teaching others about justice. Even though leaders like former California Governor Ronald Reagan tried to silence her, Davis became a professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Her work continues to inspire people to stand up against injustice. During Black History Month, we honor Angela Davis for her bravery, her dedication, and her lifelong fight for self-determination in a better world. Stay tuned to see who we honor tomorrow. Trump's newly confirmed Attorney General Pam Bondi was sworn in and quickly got started carrying out Trump's anti-immigrant policies. Just hours after taking office, she ordered the Department of Justice to stop all federal funding to sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are places where undocumented immigrants are given protection from immigration enforcement. Bondi also directed the DOJ to review funding for NGOs that help undocumented immigrants, and she called for investigations into sanctuary cities. In 2023, the DOJ gave $1.56 billion in grants to sanctuary cities. The U.S. Committee for Refugees warned that cutting this funding could hurt public safety, disaster relief, housing, and healthcare for vulnerable communities. Bondi's actions, though, go right along with Trump's stance on sanctuary cities. On one of his first days in office, Trump signed orders to limit funding to sanctuary cities and ordered ICE to begin large-scale deportation efforts in these cities. Protests, though, have erupted across the country, with people in cities like Los Angeles, Milwaukee, D.C., New Orleans, Dallas, South Carolina, Minneapolis, and Chicago fighting back, with more protests expected across the nation in the coming weeks. Additionally, and even weirder, Bondi set up a weaponization working group to investigate claims of politicized justice and Trump-related lawsuits from like Special Counsel Jack Smith and Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. This is part of Trump's efforts to punish those who opposed him. The DOJ also filed a lawsuit against Illinois, Chicago, and local officials over their sanctuary city laws. The lawsuit claims that these laws block federal immigration enforcement and prevent communication between federal, state, and local authorities. The DOJ wants a judge to rule that these laws are unconstitutional, saying federal law should take priority over state and local laws. But know your rights, unite and fight, and stay safe, everyone.